Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we have a look at ELDLICH, and I'm just realizing this after, 3 years of me doing deck analysis and testings. The first deck I'm showing is always the free-to-play version, and the second deck I show is always the expensive version, so if you see me making like suboptimal ratios in the first deck list, that's because it's the free-to-play version and it's supposed to be cheaper than the optimal version, which I will show after I show the free-to-play version. I realize that I haven't been making this very clear in my videos, so I might as well just make that clarification from now on. So yeah, we're playing ELDLICH. ELDLICH is a deck that has been good in the TCG. If you have been, playing the TCG in 2020, this deck is a trap deck. It's a trap monster deck. It revolves around one main deck monster, which is ELDLICH the Golden Lord, and his little goons, which is the trap monsters. The trap monsters have effects that activate when they are summoned as a trap monster if you have an ELDLICH on the field. So Conquistador pops a monster, and Haquero can banish a card from the graveyard. And also, other than that, the deck just loves to play Floodgates, as you can see. Also in the TCG, the deck just plays a lot of Floodgates because Floodgates just don't really affect the deck too much because you don't really use any monster effects on the field. You only ever have one monster. So you can play in a TCG. You can play Gozen Match, Rivalry, Teekboo. But here we're playing the Floodgates that we have in Duel Links, which is Power Sink Stone, which negates monster effects, and Tyrant's Tirade, which also negates monster effects. It's even better than Skill Drain. It stops your opponent, stops both players from activating any monster effects from both their field and the hand. But it requires 2 tributes, but because of the skill, we get tributes like it's nothing. In fact, we want the tribute because otherwise we clog our monster zones really quickly. So that brings us to one of the main issues with the deck in Duel Links specifically is that we don't actually have a lot of both monster zones and spell and trap zones. So you can't set as many cards as you would like. And also you would really need to clear your field so that you can summon your traps as trap monsters. Otherwise, you might get into a situation where you have a lot of monsters on your field, and then you have no space for you to actually use your trap monsters as your disruption. So you have to keep that in mind. And if you want to play around that fact, you can play a bit of link monsters in the extra deck, but here I'm just showing you the options that we could play for the fusion monsters because the skill just lets you get out any fusion monster you want. So yeah, let's have a look at the skill first because the skill makes this entire deck work. Surprisingly, it's the deck does have a kind of a quote-unquote exclusive skill, but it's not really one for exactly ELDLICH. It's more like a trap monster skill, but it just so happens to work perfectly with ELDLICH because it's pretty much designed with ELDLICH in mind. So the skill can only be used when you have a deck with 15 or more traps, and at the beginning of your first turn, you place a Temple of the Kings from the outside your deck face up on your field. So that basically allows you to activate a trap card to turn in its set. So it makes the deck a lot quicker than it is usually in the TCG, where you have to set 5 and then wait a turn. And if you control a continuous trap card, you can send a card from your hand to the graveyard, and then return any number of continuous spell cards or continuous trap cards to your hand, and then set 2 continuous trap cards from your deck that has an effect that special summons itself as a monster. And then those cards can be activated in the same turn. So what you could do is you have Temple of the Kings because of your skill, right? And then you set any trap monster or a continuous trap. It can be like Power Sink Stone for and you activate it, and then you now have a continuous trap card face up. So you should now use your skill to bounce the continuous trap card that you activated and also the Temple of the Kings both back to your hand. You discard anything that you don't need, and then you just set the 2 Golden Lord trap monsters from the deck, and then you can immediately activate them if you want. If you're going second to break boards with Conquistador, or you can just have them set until the end of the turn, so that you can use them next turn as disruption, or you can just send them to the graveyard with Eldritch Graveyard effect, and then trigger their effects to set something like Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine during the end phase. But anyway, on turn 2 onward, you can just use this effect of a skill to just add any level 10 monster or a mystical beast of circuit from outside your deck to your hand. So this usually grabs you just Eldritch, because Eldritch just it just so happens to be a level 10 monster, so you can just grab this, it just searches it, so even in the expensive version you can just play one copy and it will still be fine. And also, you can occasionally, if you want to, you can search Circuit, which allows you to tribute itself and send the Temple of Kings to the graveyard to summon any monster from your deck or any fusion monster from your extra deck. So we have these fusion monsters that are kind of like cheap to obtain or is from the same box, like Thunder Dragon Colossus, that have pretty good effects. So we have like Cositis, which is just annoying to get over. We have like Ragin, which is like a guy with a quick effect. There's like the Despia monster, which is N rarity. Purgatrio for OTKing. We have Genghis to negate a spell trap and help you go for game. Saber Twin to just attack twice, available from box chips. And Neo Blue Eyes just to be really, really big. And with that said, let's have a look at the actual other cards. In the main deck, we have, of course, one copy of Eldritch the Golden Lord. This card has a really good effect in the hand as well as in the graveyard. So you can send this card plus any spell trap from your hand to the graveyard, and then target one card on the field and just send it to the graveyard. So this deck, even as a trap deck, is really good going second. It is even better going second when you look at the expensive version, where we can play trap monsters that have really, really good effects when they are activated to break boards. And also, this card can summon itself from the graveyard pretty much by sending a card you control to the graveyard, and then it also gains 1,000 attack and defense and cannot be destroyed by card effects. And people just don't read this card. They try to just pop it with something like a card effect removal, and then they just don't work because it just cannot be destroyed by card effects. It is also lingering, so even if it gets negated, if like a skill drain type effect is on the field, like Power Sink Stone, the effect destruction, protection, and the attack boost will still remain because it doesn't activate on the field. We also have a second zombie monster. Algu Mazera is the one that I picked because your Eldlixir spells and traps can summon any zombie monster if you already have an Eldritch on the field. So we just have one other zombie target that we can summon. So other targets you can play include like Doom King Balodrock, which is like a negate that comes back again and again. But Algu is pretty cheap, and it's also pretty good. It helps you protect your things from being destroyed, because every time a zombie monster gets destroyed by any means, you can banish this card from your graveyard or hand and protect that monster from being destroyed. And also, when it's banished from the hand or graveyard, like by its own effect, you can summon itself in defense position, and then you can decrease its level by 1 if you want to. And it does not banish itself when it leaves the field, so you can just use this again and again and again, and that is what makes this card very annoying. We have 2 copies of Cursed Elderland, which is basically our searcher. You can pay 800 to search any Eldritch monster or Golden Land spell trap. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard from the spell and trap zone, you can send an Eldritch monster or a Golden Land spell trap from your deck to the graveyard. So you can search one user gets on field effect, and then you can send it to the graveyard with your own Eldritch, and then trigger its effect, dump any of your trap, and then trigger their graveyard effect during the end phase. The one copy of Elixir of Black Awakening is basically just a spell. It's like an expected die that summons an Eldritch. Nothing too much to talk about. If you already have Eldritch, it summons Algul. We'll talk about the floodgates later. We have one copy of Golden Land Forever, which is the counter trap. It negates anything pretty much, but it has to tribute a zombie monster while you already have an Eldritch on the field. So this is your way to protect your Eldritch so that it doesn't get removed by your opponent's effects. Otherwise, all of your trap cards gets turned off immediately. We have 3 copies of Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine. This is your main way of getting out the Eldritch. It is a trap card that just summons an Eldritch from your deck, or hand, or graveyard. And it doesn't summon from hand, but it summons from deck or graveyard. And if you control an Eldritch, you can also summon just any zombie. And also, it has the graveyard effect to banish itself to set a Golden Land spell trap directly from your deck. So Eldixirs can set Golden Lands, and Golden Lands can set Eldixirs. They set each other. So we have the two Golden Land trap monsters. We have Conquistador and Halquero. Conquistador can pop any, I think, face-up card. Yeah, face-up card on the field when it's activated, and Halquero can banish a card from the graveyard when it is activated. And both of them have an effect during the end phase to banish itself from the graveyard to set the Elixir of your choice from the deck to your field. I should also mention that these effects in the graveyard and the on-field effects of both the Golden Land cards and the Elixirs are shared hard once per turn, so you can only use one of the effects per turn, but because they're all trap cards, you can use one during your turn, and then you can use the other one during your opponent's turn. Even the graveyard effects can be used during your opponent's turn, so that's what makes this deck so good in the TCGs, because all of the trap cards search each other, so it gives you a really, really good grind game. And that's why you can see like people playing Eldritch in other decks in the TCG back in the day when the format was a bit slower, just because it gives you just really good like lore in a deck that just keeps grinding. It gives you a really, really good grind game. And finally, we have a look at the floodgates. We have two Power Sink Stone, which each time a monster effect is activated, it places a counter. If it has two counters, it just negates everything on the field. And also, during the end phase, you remove the counters on this card. Finally, 3 copies of Tyrant's Tirade. Tribute 2 monsters. Effects of monsters on the field or hand cannot be activated at all. So here we have an expensive version. It's not really like an expensive version of like a pure Eldritch deck, because I want to showcase what the Eldritch engine can do in Duel Links, because, well, in the TCG you've seen Eldritch being splashed into other decks like, you know, Cyber's Eldritch, and also Live Tune Eldritch I think is a thing in the TCG. And the engine in Duel Links is actually a lot better because of the skill. So what this skill allows you to do is splash Eldritch and a bunch of other trap monsters in a deck that doesn't need a skill, and then it gives the deck a really, really good board breaking ability, and also a bit of interruptions going first as well. So, but the main appeal is to go second. So, because of the two trap monsters, Anguish Pattern and the new Apophis the Swamp Deity, which is unfortunately paywalled, but you can still make it work with only one copy and then replace it with other trap monsters. This skill just makes breaking boards so very easy, because what you do is if you go second, you can just set a continuous trap. Doesn't matter what it is. Just set any continuous trap, activate it, use your skill, bounce them both back to your hand, and then you can set an Anguish Pattern and a Swamp Deity both from your deck. And then you can activate Anguish Pattern first, and then once it's on the field, you activate the Swamp Deity, and then you negate a card with Swamp Deity, and then you pop a card with Anguish Pattern. And then now you not only have one pop and one negate, you have 2 monsters on the field, which you can make Nightmare Phoenix, and then you pop another back row, and then if you have another trap monster that you summoned, you can also again make a Nightmare Unicorn and then spin another card. And not only that, you also get to use the skill second effect to grab Eldritch from your deck to your hand, and then Eldritch can send another card from your opponent's field to the graveyard. So it's a lot of removal if you go second, which is really, really good for decks that don't have a really broken skill tied to it, like, you know, Live Twins, so that the deck has a lot more power when they go second in engine to actually break boards. And even if you go first, you can still set these trap monsters as interruption for your opponent's turn as well. And you will be able to see that these trap monsters complement Live Twins pretty well, even though the Live Twins require you to not have any monsters to use their on-summon effects. It's fine, because you can just use the trap monsters as part of the link material for any of the link monsters, including the nightmares as well. So, not too much to talk about in terms of the cards I'm playing in this deck. It's pretty much a very standard Legion deck with a bunch of Eldritch stuff put into it. And one thing I should mention is that we were playing a copy of Evilton GG Easy because it just so happens to be a continuous trap card that is searchable with secret password. So if you open with secret password and no other continuous traps, you can always just search this card, and then you can set it, activate it, and then that will enable you to be using your skill. And also, it's pretty funny. If you're already in a winning position, you can just search this card and laugh at your opponent, say GG easy, and then go for game. And speaking of going for game, Eldritch not only gets rid of a card when it's in your hand, it's also just really big. You just make it, it's 3,500 attack. You can just use it to go for game a lot easier, even though, Evil Twins don't really have an issue going for game now that we have the Link 4. But having another Eldritch just being a really huge guy on the field really helps this game, helps this deck win by dealing enough damage. So with that said, let's have a look at some replays. Okay, first replay, we were playing against the new Blue Eye stuff, and we are going second. And as I said in the deck profile, this deck is actually really, really good in going second, just because of all the stuff that you can activate the turn that it's set because of your skill, and the Temple of the Kings that you also get with your skill. The expensive version will have a lot of an easier time going second because of the Anguish patterns and Apophis to negate, but it's still pretty good in the free-to-play version, especially when we can flip a Power Sync Stone immediately to turn it set as like kind of a negate on the field. So our opponent is gonna make Spirit Dragon and pass. That would be okay. We're gonna go and grab ourselves the free Temple of the Kings. We're gonna flip up the Power Sync Stone. Our opponent will use the trap card to pop 2. They're gonna pop the Eldland and the Temple of the Kings, which is fine because we already activated a trap. And now our opponent has used 2 monster effects, so let's use the skill. I'm gonna first grab Eldritch, send the Spirit Dragon away so that it can't negate our graveyard effects, and then now we can summon it back, and then just set a bunch of traps. We don't even need to use the first effect of our skill to set from deck because, well, we already have enough on our field. And also we don't really want to bounce back the Power Sync Stone. Our opponent will summon a bunch of Blue Eyes, realize that they can't actually pop our Eldritch, which is pretty funny, and they kind of have a pretty hard time trying to beat over our Eldritch, because our Eldritch just so happens to have 500 attack more than their Blue Eyes. They're gonna try to Fusion Summon. I chain the pop. We're gonna pop the True Light, and then the True Light will get rid of their stuff. And I probably could have saved the Haquero for later because it doesn't really matter if I chain the Haquero to the Ultimate Fusion, they can just Fusion Summon another guy. But that's still fine. I don't think they have a lot of gas left anyway. Especially now that we can use the first effect of our skill that we haven't used the last turn to gain even more card advantage. We can get rid of a bunch of their stuff. They will try to bring back their Jack Dragon, we can banish the Jack Dragon, and then we can just punch in, and with nothing left on their field, we can just attack in and deal lethal. In our second game, we were playing against, another Odeon deck, and this guy is actually playing not a pure Eldritch deck. He's also using the skill, like in the Live deck that I showed. He's trying to use the Eldritch stuff and also the Anguish pattern and Apophis combo in a different deck, and this deck that he's playing is Crusadia, because Crusadia just so happens to have a trap monster that they can utilize with the skill. And I thought it was pretty cool, so I would show this replay, even though, spoiler alert, I did not win this game. But I thought it was a pretty cool deck that he's playing, so I'll still show it. And apologies if I'm not sounding the best, if my commentary sounds a bit whack, just because I'm not feeling very well, but I still think that I should put out this Eldritch video as quickly as I could, just so that it doesn't get outdated. And also I have a lot of videos that I'm planning to make in the upcoming few days because of the new update. So I'm gonna make a lot of new player stuff as well. I'm gonna make a new player friendly Sword Soul deck, for example, and then later I'm gonna make a complete new player guide as well. I'm gonna probably make a new player account and then go do a new player playthrough. And we're gonna try to attack over their stuff, but because they're playing a lot of trap monsters, it's kind of hard to out-grind them, and then they use their skill to grab the level 10 Kaiju, which is another thing that you can play if you splash Eldritch in a different deck. Is instead of searching Eldritch, you can just search the level 10 Kaiju as a form of removal. And now that Eldritch is not on our field, all 3 of our trap cards are turned off. We can't negate with the counter trap because we don't have an Eldritch, and the trap monsters don't do anything because we don't have an Eldritch on the field. So now we're just a sitting duck, which is a really, really bad thing if our opponent is playing a deck like Crusadia, because they can just punch over our guy and we will just die. So they're gonna give their monster a billion attack, and then they do double damage, and we take a 7,200 attack, 7,200 points of damage, and yeah, that's the end of the game. And in our third and final game, we are using the expensive version, which is the version with the live twins in it, and I'll be able to show you guys what this deck is able to do going second as a really, really strong board-breaking engine using your trap monsters. As you can see, we have the live twin, and we have a bunch of trap monsters, which is pretty much all we need. So our opponent is gonna play Sky Strikers. They're gonna make Shizuku set a bunch of back row, and we're just gonna destroy every single one of them and wish them good luck. So we're gonna set the Temple of the Kings, play around the Imperm column a bit. So we're gonna put this in a back row so that when we summon a monster, we already have used Temple of Kings effect, so that we don't care about the Imperm column. So we're gonna activate the Anguish pattern from my hand, and then we're gonna activate our second Anguish pattern. He's gonna try to negate. We can negate his Widow Anchor, and then we can go Anguish pattern to pop, and because we summon 2 trap monsters, we get to pop 2. We can pop both his other back row and his monster. He will try to make a Ray. We can try to send it. He can chain. That's fine, because we can still use the remaining trap monsters on our field as link material, so that later on we can make a Nightmare Phoenix and then make a Nightmare Unicorn, and then spin back the Shizuku again. That's like, what, 5 removal? 6 removal if you count the Eldritch. So we have like the trap monsters, we have the Eldritch in hand, and then we have the Nightmare Phoenix, and then we have the Nightmare Unicorn. It's a ridiculous the amount of interruptions that we can, like the amount of removal that we can do before we even start to do the live twin combo. So now we can just do the live twin combo. We can make, well, what? Oh no, what's happening with the names? Oh my god, I don't know what's happening, but anyway, we're gonna also just be able to summon the Eldritch. And I forgot to mention, we have a little bit of synergy because the continuous spell is something that we can send with our Eldritch to summon itself back. So that's way more than enough for game. So we just attack, and yeah, that's it.